So you know what this is, man?
What?
This is location number 350.
350?
Hello there, parapeeps, and welcome to another episode of Our Haunted Travels. I am your host, Sean Donnelly.
I'm your co-host, Mary Ann Donnelly.
That's right, this is location number 350. We don't have them all documented yet, but we're working on it.
We'll get there.
So in this one, we're going to tell you about a fort. Kind of an interesting fort. Little situation that they had here. Mm-hmm. But before we get into that, if you're into the paranormal, history, forensic, and travel type videos,
don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell so you'll hear from us next time we post a new video.
So yes, this is Fort Lauren.
Fort Lawrence, yeah.
Fort Lauren. And we are in Bolivar, Ohio, which, if you follow along on our channel, we're not too far from Zoar Village.
That's right. It's 3 miles down the road.
Ooh. So, we got some footage from inside. Go ahead and watch that. And I got a little clip from the video as to actually what happened here, so it'll give you some of the history. Okay? And then we're going to go around and get some more footage while you watch that. So we'll be right back.
In honor of the President of the Continental Congress, the fortification will be constructed by the soldiers themselves, cutting down trees in a huge arc around where the fort will be to furnish the wood for the fort. The complaint that was stated several times is the lack of materials, the lack of metal, hinges for doors, nails for doors, and window shutters, and so on for building cabins for the soldiers inside the fort.
They didn't have enough supplies or troops to continue the expedition westward. So it was decided to set up the post and McIntosh go back to Fort Pitt, leaving John Gibson and 180 men manning the fort.
Unfortunately, word of Fort Lawrence's existence goes back to the British at Detroit, Fort Lauderdale.
And one of the leaders of this was a Captain Henry Byrd from the British Army, and Simon Girty, who was what's called a renegade. He was an American, but he was siding with the British.
He has maybe 10 men from the 8th Regiment of Foot, and then a quantity of Indians. The Wyandot, the Mingo, the Shawnee Indians that were part of the war party, they are in the area for a number of days.
They ambushed a tree cutting party that had been sent out from the fort.
Son of the guard! Wood party's under attack! We presume they were killed instantly. Men in the fort could do nothing to protect them. They saw the attack at a distance that the weapons that the soldiers carried were accurate at that range. So we have what becomes known as the massacre at Fort Lawrence, and with that, word is sent back from Fort Lawrence to Fort McIntosh, Fort Pitt, that the fort is under attack.
Supplies had run very, very low. Remember, they were cut off there from November to March.
The men did not have winter clothing. They had the same clothing, basically, that they had in the summer months. The only thing they could do was wrap a blanket around their shoulders to try to keep in some of their warmth.
Stories were that at one point they killed a deer, brought the deer into the fort, but before they could cook it, the soldiers actually pulled it apart and ate all the meat.
The lack of food was so great that they took off their moccasins in one case, washed them, and tried to boil them so that they could eat them and drink broth from them. Moccasins that had been worn for any length of time would have no food value, and no matter how well you boiled them, they probably would never become edible.
Finally, on March the 23rd, an expedition that had been launched from Fort Pitt had reached Fort Lawrence.
Sergeant of the Guard, the relief party is here.
The men in the fort are so glad to see McIntosh, 500 men, and a lot of pack horses. The men in the fort showed their enthusiasm by loading and firing their guns into the air in what was called a feu de joie, a fire of joy.
At that point, the horses stampeded. Problem was, many of the horses stampeded so far, they only got a small portion of all those supplies they had trekked over from Fort Pitt and Fort McIntosh. So they had a council of war, and all the officers in charge were in agreement that they lost so many supplies that they could not go on with the expedition to the west. So that was the end of the expedition to the west to try to take the Indian towns around the Sandusky River and Lake Erie.
So as Fort Lawrence is abandoned in August of 1779, and the garrison marches back to Fort Pitt, and Fort Lawrence remains empty, unoccupied, it nonetheless shows that the American cause in the West had been championed, and that the American goal to hold this area had been achieved. In Fort Lawrence, although not a major part of the bigger story, has an important role to play in that story. It's an example of American stick-to-itiveness in terms of their military goal in the West during the American Revolution.
So throughout this whole property here, I thought this originally was like a ditch here, but this is actually, goes all around here. This is the outline of where the fort actually was. It goes all the way out that way. We haven't gone to the other side of the building, but we see here, this is like marking on my foot where the logs were. That's kind of cool. They must keep that ditch clean. Yeah, look, see? It goes all along there. That was the outline of the fort. So Mary Ann's been taking pictures of these placards and stuff. Normally I have her read them, but she seems to be in a hurry. But here's a little character that we had in one of our other videos. Look at that, Chief Cornstalk. So what was Chief Cornstalk? How was he involved here?
He was murdered by the Virginians at Fort Randolph.
Which we've been to.
The Shawnee remained neutral until he was murdered. And then all tribes but the Delaware were attacking the American settlements in the Ohio County.
So the Native Americans were fired up because of his death then, actually. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like the fort actually went that way, towards the highway. So we're actually, I guess we're actually standing in the fort.
We're standing in the fort.
This was the fort here, not over that way.
And definitely not with the trampoline people.
Yeah. So we gotta go see what's going on that way. But for some of the paranormal stuff and everything, it's way down there. We'll go down there real quick and I'll show you some footage and some of the paranormal claims that's going on down in that area. So this is the actual ambush site. And I believe the paranormal claims is that they sometimes see soldiers walking this field. Actually, they're seen throughout the property, but right here was the ambush site. I tell you what, this is a big tree. Wow. That one is over there too. You guys know me and trees. We have a love-hate relationship. Come stand next to this tree just to get size.
Yeah, it's huge.
Look how big that. It's huge.
It's absolutely huge. It's definitely wider than I am tall. Because tip to tip of your middle fingertips, that's how tall you are. So this tree is wider than I am tall.
Tell you what, this is a big place. I didn't catch how many acres, but I don't think I want to cut the grass. Let's go see what these things are. Okay, I knew it'd be interesting. Cemetery hospital. Cemetery in the hospital. So, what's it say there, man? Those graves?
You are now standing outside the fort wall, near the location of the fort's hospital, outbuilding, and cemetery. 21 men died at Fort Lawrence and were buried in the fort cemetery. Several remains were discovered in a single or double burials. A mass grave of at least 13 individuals was the resting place of an ill-fated wood-gathering party that was ambushed.
Is that right there?
Probably. It was ambushed by the Indians February of 1779. The graves were excavated in 1973, 1984, and 1986. The flagstone markings seen in the ground represent the location of the cemetery and where the remains of the soldiers who died here were excavated during the survey work. Their remains were removed and have been placed inside the crypt located in the museum, with one soldier being buried in the Tomb of the Unknown Patriot of the American Revolution, located here on the fort grounds.
And we have footage and pictures of the one inside, so we got to go get the Tomb of the Unknown. Interesting. I tell you what, if you're into paranormal history, woo, this place is interesting. I don't know about the trampoline over there. Okay, here's the placard about the unknown. It looks like they did a full military internal type thing. But go ahead, we'll read this one.
When Fort Lawrence was nearly finished, McIntosh and the majority of the troops returned east. Under Colonel John Gibson, 176 men and 5 women remained to face the winter. Due to the distance from supply lines, food and provisions were scarce. The troops resorted to eating herbs and even boiling ox hides and moccasins for soup. After being besieged by British-led tribes for a month, they were finally relieved by reinforcements in March of 1779. Gibson and his men departed, but the new troops fared no better. The fort was abandoned in August of 1779. The location of those killed during their gathering expedition outside the fort is believed to be located 100 yards to the south from this location. The 1976 bicentennial of the American Revolution was the occasion for the reburial of the remains of the first Fort Lawrence soldier discovered in 1973. This fallen defender of the fort was buried with full military honors by the Ohio National Guard on June 26th of 1976. The unknown patriot of the American Revolution personifies the courage and perseverance of those who fought and died during the conflicts of the American independence. Soldiers from various units of the U.S. military carried the unknown patriot to his final resting place.
So this is the one that they don't know who they were.
Right, so this one, they chose one of them to be this here. Patriot.
It's a pretty nice little memorial, huh? It's like a mini version of the Tomb of the Unknown in D.C. Oh, this looks interesting. I'm not going back there though because I don't have mosquito stuff on, but man, that looks interesting back here.
Reynolds.
Oh, Reynolds, yes. Okay, what are we going to do?
Okay, so I'm going to go and sit on one of the graves. I actually have a picture of me when I was doing an archaeological dig of me sitting in a grave undigging a person. So I just have the desire to do that right
you're
here.
just like creepy. Which
Yeah, I'm
one
just
do you want?
creepy.
You want that one or the mass grave?
It doesn't matter. Can I do both?
Can I do both? Well, sure. You can do whatever you want. Go ahead. This is what I live with. Hey, if this makes her happy, go ahead. Sit on the graves. Go ahead. They're not there now.
No, they're not, but
Okay.
you know.
Well, I just want to state that clearly for the camera. This
Oh.
is where they were.
Gotcha. They're
Now
inside.
they're inside.
They're inside that building there now.
This was the archaeological dig.
Right, where they
Where they
found them.
Well, we hope you like the fort. I mean, it was a pretty cool place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I just love that they had found those graves and that they moved them inside. And I got to sit on one of them.
Yeah. Okay, folks. We're going to wrap it up. Till next time.
Thanks for watching.
And happy hunting.
Let us know if you like this video by hitting that thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, support our channel by hitting that subscribe button and dinging that bell so you get notified the next time there's a video from Panic D Videos.
Thanks for watching.
Happy hunting!